We have this weird tradition in America surrounding Christmas sweaters, specifically ugly Christmas sweaters. First off, harsh. The current tradition varies, but thanks to Mark Darcy in Bridget Jones's Diary, or his mother, I guess, or Clark Griswold, or the original 1950s Christmas sweater, whatever your origin era of ugly Christmas sweaters is, garish holiday sweaters have been covetously snatched up from secondhand shops since the early aughts and proudly worn again, if only ironically for one night, and usually only to win a contest. Of course, one doesn't even need to go to a secondhand shop anymore. The trend has been co-opted by Amazon and Target, like every other pure-hearted trend in the world. So I am left with this beauty, who did win me a $5 gift card to Starbucks 2 years ago, and who I have been unable to unload for even as little as $7 on Depop. Seriously guys, it's Frosty, and he has 3D scarf tassels and pom-poms. I could redonate him to a thrift store and risk him ending up on a beach in Ghana, or I could use him to make art. I'm in the mood to do something stupid, so let's use Frosty to make an ugly Christmas sweater corset. Or a pair of bodies for those terminology purists out there. I have quite a few corsety patterns at this point I could have chosen from, and I chose the Dorothea Bodies because I love them. The pattern I've already drafted fits me really well, and the front panel is one big panel and Frosty centered up nicely. This is a sweatery knit, and if I just cut into it, the edges would unravel. To prevent this, I glued around the perimeter of the pattern, which fixed the stitches in place. Not in love with using glue on any fashion project, but it worked. The corset will be bound around the edges, and I knew there was bound to be some growth with the knit, so I cut it net to the glued edge. This thing was a chonk to cut. Put that little beauty away for later. My first major conundrum was whether I wanted this to function as a sweater, so soft, stretchy, etc., or as a structured corset. I mean, corset always. So I laid the knit panels on top of this white denim-y twill that is very close to the coutil so many corset makers love, and basted around the edges. In hindsight, I wish I'd marked the boning channels first. I'm so used to making bodies in a certain way, I didn't even think about it, but this was a very lumpy surface to mark. I also could have just made a twill corset and mounted the knit on top as the smooth layer that is present in so many portraits, but that would just be cheating, and I didn't think of it till now. I began stitching the boning channels in the center and worked my way out. This was stupid hard. I stitched twill up, knit down, so that the feed dogs would help regulate the very irregular knit, but there was only so much they could do, and the resulting boning channels were... oh, well, I think they're beautiful. It's fine, I used a blue thread for this because I was afraid a contrasting thread would just look busy, and I'm glad I did. I stitched the diagonals on the boning layout. I stitched the shoulder straps self-pieces to the front body right sides together. I couldn't be bothered to switch the thread color in my machine, so I hand-stitched the lining layer. While I was at it, I whip-stitched the seam allowance of the knit layer to keep it flat. I attached the strap to the back panel. I attached the back side of the lining by folding it over and felling it from the right side. I stitched a 1/2 inch bias binding around the entire outer perimeter of the bodies. I didn't love the way this looked, reminded me of a pot holder or something, so I went around the perimeter with a gathered blanket stitch in speckled blue yarn. This was as well framed as this shot got. Oops. It was actually a pretty satisfying process though, and I did most of it while watching The Holiday, which surprisingly has only gotten slightly cringier with age. Pretty good. I also used the yarn to create simple eyelets that mimicked the snowflakes on the sweater, in a rustic way. Initially, I was planning to use actual boning in this thing, but because I didn't have an extra layer of twill in there, the plastic sort of shined through the knit. Anything I used would have had to match the sweater perfectly, and that's the story of how these became corded sweater bodies. Bonus is that nobody, namely myself, can come at me for wasting any of the original sweater. Believe it or not, everything made it in except the sleeves, which I'm using for my machine knitting class in the spring. Material efficiency mic drop. I stitched along the top of the cording channels. As I was harvesting my cording, I came across this now perfectly usable trim, which I stitched to the neckline of the bodies by hand. Satisfying, no? I was kind of at a loss how to finish the raw edge of the neckline, so I just stitched bias tape over it. Hold please. Okay, so hear me out. This was a silly, nay, stupid project, but I kind of fell in love with the silly thing. I'm sure we've all made some impulse wardrobe purchases, yes, even secondhand purchases count, that end up as one-time wears. I'm not saying I'm going to wear this every day, but I'll definitely wear it more than I would have as another Y2K ugly Christmas sweater. I think, and I mean Vivienne Westwood is proof, that the corset stands the test of time. Will turning this sweater into a corset save it from the landfill? Only time will tell. If you enjoyed this video, I always appreciate a thumbs up. I have a very serious corsety project in the works, but for the next couple of weeks, I'm taking a break. So in the meantime, look out for the traditional YouTuber standby, a January update video coming up soon. Bye!